This is where I want to start because Ariel Helwani, who is playing sick, playing hurt, and we thank him for doing this, is not in person with me and you, Katie.
Yeah.
He's
There's no chance that's real.
What's I feel bad that you feel bad physically.
Sorry
I
about
feel
it.
good that we can now interrogate him about the real thing I want to find out today, which is what the f***.
That's a green screen, right?
That's I mean,
It has to be a green
that's
screen.
fake
That's
as
too many
hell.
books, and they're too small. They'd have to be very far
Does this
behind
look like
you.
a green screen? Look
Yes.
at the way I'm moving.
Yeah.
That's not a green screen.
Yes, it does. What's that
That
little?
is a
What's
head
that little
movement.
light flare
Boxer.
off your left shoulder?
No, it's just because I have. Is there one that you want me to pull out? I'll be happy to
Yes.
pull it out.
Yeah, get
Any of
the
them.
dialogues of Plato. I see it over there hiding in the
Okay.
corner.
Just 1 second.
Oh shoot, it's real. I'm convinced.
Oh my God, that's an actual
Wow,
book.
look at all those books.
It's a very smart person book too.
And you've read all of them, I assume.
This might be the best thing that I got from working at ESPN. It's a TV.
Sick.
So it's not a green
That's
screen.
great.
Wait, but this is the question
That's
I
so
have.
great.
This is the question I have.
This thing killed me right here.
Yeah,
This
that's,
killed me
I
right
told
here.
you. I saw
There's a
this flare.
reflection. If you're not watching on the DraftKings Network or
Damn.
YouTube, there's a clear reflection from Ariel's window, beautiful window, the sunlight of New Jersey streaming in. But those books, like, whose books are those?
Yeah, where'd you get that picture?
How would you pick those
Okay.
books? What's the backstory on the
This
book?
is a great question. A question that no one's asked me. Actually, one time I was on SportsCenter towards the end of my time there, and the freaking screensaver went on.
No cap, Jay, as the kids like to say. No cap right here. Co-main event. I'm more excited about the co-main event. As my screen goes out behind me, my entire life has just been exposed as a complete fraud, Jay. Can you believe this?
That was very,
Oh, that's very funny.
very embarrassing.
Very funny.
Flying toasters.
I like being in like a warm library. I was looking for something homey. I looked at like pictures of libraries and whatnot. Now this is a library. That's the thing that I can't even believe anyone would think this would be in my house. Like, look how many books this is.
I know,
This
but
is an
there's no like Dewey Decimal System. I don't see any numbers or tape on the.
If you look very closely, there's a lot here.
Oh, okay.
And so I just found the right picture that matches, I think, my skin tone, my hair, my
It
eyes,
does.
everything.
It really
And
does.
It just kind of fits. It feels like it's my little universe. So
Yeah.
I don't really appreciate you guys breaking kayfabe, as we
Okay.
say in the wrestling business. We could have just ignored all of this.
Sure, maybe you have
but now
to. Maybe you should frame out the bottom of the TV there, so we
Where?
could
Ah, crap.
not.
Yeah, that's-
It wouldn't be obvious. There
I'm
you
a
go.
little bit off my
There you
game.
go.
How's
It's
that? Is
crazy that you
better?
have it so that it has to be perfectly set, or it's.
I just like how the guy who's the best, foremost MMA expert in the world is like, you know what? My audience needs to know that I love books.
I read.
Yeah.
Yes.
I read quite a bit.
So I bring on Ariel Helwani for many reasons. He is the foremost authority on MMA and all sorts of things that I don't understand. Also because I've been obsessed. What I bring to the table today in this episode of Share and Tell is this video that I watched from my couch of Ariel on a stage in between Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis. And I want to get to the genre of what they engage in these days because that's a bigger picture topic. But the micro of this is just this press conference that devolved very rapidly and which Ariel was ahead of, seemingly, before anybody else, if we can watch that clip.
Oh.
So this is Logan Paul, like, underhand chucking a bottle of something at Dylan Dennis's...
Of Prime, I assume.
Of Prime, presumably.
Assume it's Prime.
And Katie, where
Yep.
would you say that struck Dylan Dennis?
In the penis.
Hit him in the penis.
Right in the penis.
That's what it looked like.
It was below the belt.
Yeah.
And then Dylan Dennis, like, Ariel, how would you describe what you saw? Because he takes his microphone and then does what?
Yeah, well, I didn't see all of that because, as you can see in the,
You got
the
out.
clip, I got the hell out of there. And a lot of people were making fun of me. I'm like, yo, you think I want to get... Like, if there's another angle, if I would have stayed exactly where I was originally, I would have been pelted in the head with a
100%.
water bottle.
Yeah.
So I'm totally okay with being the scaredy cat who goes off. I actually thought I was very calm, cool, and collected about it. I just said, you know what? I'm out of here. Walked there to the left.
I
little
do
L
think
cut.
you did a little bit of hand stuff that
Okay, so
made
that's the
you
thing.
look
Yeah.
like
No,
not
you know what?
cool, calm, collected. You
It's
did do a little
very,
bit of like
very
a...
unfair.
Ooh.
It's very unfair. If you roll the tape back,
Which we
I'm
will,
fixing my
repeatedly.
IFB. Look, I'm
Fixing
fixing
your
my
I-
IFB,
oh,
and then
but-
he hits me.
But this...
So
this.
that's why I did that. Had I not been fixing my IFB in that moment, I would have never done that. I would have been unflappable
You were
in that
here,
moment.
and then you went to...
I feel like
Yeah, I was here, and then I went to here, and that's called good defense.
Yeah,
that's Philly
yeah,
shell right
yeah,
there.
yeah.
That's good defense.
shoulder,
Okay?
Ariel was shoulder rolling as soon as that
Yes.
water bottle flew across the stage.
Thank you for that, Pablo.
That said, the other verb I'd use is scamper. There was a scampering.
A
and
scurrying.
It felt like, Ariel, you've done this before, though. The face-off, the press conference before a fight. And you had veteran savvy about where you wanted to not be, I guess.
Yeah.
I wanted nothing. I'm not fighting. I'm not courageous like them. I want nothing to do with any of that. And these two guys have had their moments. In August, they had a press conference and cake was being thrown and water bottles were being thrown back there too. I want nothing to do with any of this. I just want to go there, do my job, come home to my family. There's no part of me that wants to be a hero and say, I took a water bottle to the face. So people were making fun of me for getting out of the way. I wish I got out of the way quicker. I went to hide behind the ring girls. So like that's how I wanted nothing. I was like, there's no way they're gonna throw anything at them. So let me just hide behind. I have no problem being a total coward. In this moment.
Human shields.
Yep, you're that guy in the movie that takes the woman and it's like, no, take her, not me.
Yeah. Like
beautiful.
George Costanza when there's a fire in the apartment and he's like
shoving
knocking
old
over the old people. That was me, and I am totally okay with it. But to answer your question though, Pablo, he took a microphone and he nailed Logan in the head with it. Dylan did, and then he cut him open. And it was very unfortunate because, there's an actual fight that needs to happen on Saturday. So for a minute there, I was looking at the executives. They look like, they had the fear of God in their eyes because now all of a sudden this multi-million-dollar fight was potentially up in smoke because of this hijinks. In the end, though, it didn't matter. Everyone was okay. But that's some scary stuff.
Well, I want to follow up on that framing because this is a thing that had millions upon millions of dollars on the line. It's real big business now. And you also pointed out that you, as a professional, want to do professional things. You want to go, show up, do your job, and you doing your job at what do we call this genre now, Ariel? This was a professional boxing fight, but this was Logan Paul, YouTuber influencer versus Dylan Dennis, who, Katie, I don't even know if you know.
I have no idea who that is.
So please explain what the
Okay. So Dylan Dennis is actually an incredible Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner. He's a black belt. He's had great success in the BJJ world. Then he met a guy named Conor McGregor, and his profile grew a lot, and he sort of adopted some of Conor's persona. He's only had 2 MMA fights, and they were very low-level fights for an organization called Bellator. But his last fight was in 2019. He suffered a serious knee injury. He's been out for a while, but what he's really good at is being a crap talker. He's a troll. And anytime there's something on any major Instagram or Twitter account about the Paul brothers, he would always be talking crap about them, that he would beat them up, that he would knock them out, et cetera, et cetera. He was scheduled to fight a guy named KSI, who was in the main event of this event, who's Logan's business partner in Prime, who's a huge deal in England, in January. He pulled out a week before. At that point, his Q rating couldn't have been lower. Everyone was like, oh my God, Dylan, you talk all this crap. You didn't even show up to fight KSI, the rapper. You couldn't even fight that guy. You're not a real fighter. Logan now, WWE wrestler, killing it all over the place. He's making a ton of money. He says he wants to box. He picks Dylan. When I heard about this, I actually saw Logan at an event in August, and I said, why would you pick Dylan? His Q rating is so low. Why are you giving him this platform? He's like, it's an easy fight, blah, blah, blah. Well, what ended up happening was Dylan, being the troll that he is, took his trolling into overdrive and ended up really picking a fight with Dylan's fiance, a woman by the name of Nina, and went on this 2-month onslaught.
This is where I noticed it. Was that my algorithm began feeding me this man's
it was insane.
War on former SI swimsuit model and tabloid, I guess, sub character Nina Agdal. And
I know that name.
And it got, I mean, Ariel, how extreme did it feel relative to your
Insane.
expectations for all of this?
No, it got way too personal, and it was gross, and he gained 800,000 followers on Twitter and all that stuff. What ended up happening though, initially when this fight was announced, I was like, oh, I get it now. Logan's trying to knock out the guy that everyone hates, the troll online. And let's be honest, Logan is polarizing, and there's some people who hate him, and now they're going to love him. But what ended up happening was that Dylan became the babyface, guys. Babyface is the
yes,
pro
course.
wrestling term for good guy. And what ended up happening was all these people on Twitter who are maybe sad, depressed, can't get a girl, I don't know what it is, started cheering him on to harass this poor woman who had nothing to do with this even more. So he would post these pictures and videos, and it was getting really ugly. And now she's suing him, and it's just like it's turned into this whole thing, and it got way too personal. But what ended up happening was it drew a lot of eyeballs and a lot of attention to the fight.
Yeah.
And so when we got to Manchester last week, it felt like that was the main event. It wasn't, but it felt like it.
That wasn't the main event?
It wasn't the main event. It was the co-main event. It was the second to last fight, but it felt like Logan was going to rip his head off, and who could blame him? It became very, very personal.
Ariel, to your point, right? Like what this did was promote the fight.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the juice. I love combat sports, boxing specifically, because humiliation, ego, the ruining of a man's sense of self is on the line. This one, it just felt real, like the enmity, the stakes were that real. And so what happened?
Okay, so it was really real. And it's interesting that you bring up humiliation, because that ended up playing a big factor in how the fight went. The fight ended up being a total bust, because what happened was Dylan Dennis, who hasn't fought in 4 years, spent the first 2 rounds like this. He didn't throw a single punch. In fact, he only landed 9 punches throughout the entire 6-round fight. When I was watching it and I was commentating for DAZN, I said, you know what? Yeah, I understand what he's doing. He's trying to tire out Logan. Logan's got big muscles. He's not a professional boxer, so maybe he's trying to let him, unload everything, and then he'll pour it on come the third. And in fact, his coach confirmed that was the game plan. The problem was at the end of the second, Logan actually rocked him, and I think Dylan then in his mind said, I'm not going to get humiliated by this guy. I'm not going to get knocked down. I'm not going to get knocked out. I'm going to get a moral victory and say that I survived his best shots, and I'm not going to put myself in any kind of harm or trouble to potentially get knocked out by him. And then he took it one step further and just wanted to create like a moment, a viral moment, a meme, if you will.
Ew.
So he tried to like get him in a guillotine. He tried to do a takedown. He tried to do stupid stuff. But in the end, he only kind of really embarrassed himself and didn't end up doing anything of note. And then at the end, when it got all crazy, Logan's bodyguard jumped in the ring and it turned into a huge brawl.
Again.
Logan ended up winning via DQ. It was kind of a
mess.
It was a bit of a sham.
Who
unfortunately,
is
it was
the
a mess.
governing body of this fight?
It's a great question. This is a great question. So this was under an umbrella, like an organization called Misfits Boxing. Now this is fascinating, guys, because Misfits is this boxing organization that is owned by KSI and a guy named Mams Taylor, who was once big in the music industry. And I couldn't believe, I'd never been to one of their events, but to answer your earlier question,
Yes,
Pablo,
yes.
what is this? It's not boxing. You cannot call it boxing. It's sort of like, you know how professional wrestling has the word wrestling in there, but it really has nothing to do with collegiate or Olympic wrestling?
Mm-hmm.
It's crossover or influencer boxing. You must always call it that. Crossover or influencer boxing. It's a whole different thing. But you know what blew me away?
I didn't know that.
When I went there, I was at Tank Garcia in April in Las Vegas. I was at Spence Crawford, two of the biggest boxing matches.
Real boxers.
Right. But come the co-main event, those nights, there probably wasn't 1,000 people at T-Mobile Arena. No one was in the arena. No one cared. On Saturday in Manchester, before the first fight, and I think that there were a total of 11 or 12 fights on this card. Before the first fight, it was probably 60 to 70% full. Before the first fight on the main card, 6-fight main card, it was 100% full. You don't see this in anything but the UFC. And where this was different than the UFC was, I couldn't believe how many young kids were there. It was more of a WWE crowd than a UFC crowd. There were 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds with their dad. And so what I try to explain to my audience who gets so upset when they see this stuff, this is a sham, this is an example that boxing is dead, blah, blah, blah. This isn't for me. This isn't for you, Pablo. This isn't for the traditional combat sports fan.
It's for me.
There is a massive audience of young kids that love this stuff, and they know all the characters, and they're obsessed with them from top to bottom, and they know their stories, and they subscribe to them on YouTube and on TikTok and all this stuff. It's a whole other universe that we don't know anything about, and it was just fascinating to witness it all.
But the idea that we don't know anything about it, I do want to challenge you on that, because it feels like the reason partly why it's so successful is because the skill set, Ariel, the skill set of how to sell a fight, how to create juice, how to create that like crackling sensation of like, man, I wonder what happens. What happens in this fight we're about to see. It feels like the comment section or the Twitter thread, the world of influencer YouTuber is such a natural farm system for at least that part of combat sports, right? The promotion of it.
It is, and it uses those elements of, oh, I like this guy, I hate that guy, I'm emotionally invested in this guy, I want to see this guy beat his ass, I want to see this guy lose. But ultimately, like, they're not pro boxers.
Right.
You know, those
it's all
other
sizzle.
than
There's no stake. Doesn't it feel
Well,
like it's once it
to
gets down to the
them-
fight, there's never a fight that you're like, wow, what a
well, some
fight.
of them actually, to be fair, some of them were good, but I would just never. They were novices. It was like seeing like there was one fight on that card which was crazy, but I have to admit, for what it was entertaining. It was tag team boxing. It was like
I don't even
tag
know
team wrestling.
what.
2-on-2. It was 2-on-2 with one guy standing outside. Like they are trying to redefine.
So they have
this
to name
world.
it. I think they have to name it something. I think it has to
They
become
call it
its own.
crossover boxing.
They should call it Celebrity Deathmatch.
That was a good show back in the
I
day.
think
Be a
they call it
claymation Judge Mills Lane.
Yeah. I just think that, like, I don't know, celebrity in the definition of the way they use it on TV when it's a show of people, like Celebrity Jeopardy.
Yeah.
It's like
Katie
not really
stares
celebrity.
into the camera.
No, but it just feels like it doesn't bum you out at all. I know you said there's young kids and that it's for them, it's not for us, but it doesn't make you go like, hey, this was a real thing. And now in this time when clearly the boxing landscape and fight sport landscape is changing with like Showtime is now out of the game.
Yep.
Doesn't it make you get a little bit
don't you
where's
worry?
it going?
Don't you worry that somewhere Jeremy Schaap is weeping? Ariel, just like
love
look,
Jeremy.
the idea though,
Salt of the
to
earth.
Katie's point though, the idea of like we're over-indexing on sizzle, and we're selling stuff, and it reminds me of like truly the problem sports faces macroeconomically and macroculturally, which is, wow, all these people are talking about this on social, but how do we actually make this into like a product? And it feels like here they're at the very least getting people to want to know what's in the box, right? And I just wonder, is that sustainable? Does this feel like a real business that you'll be covering for a long ass time?
No. This is not. There are actual people that cover this. This is their beat. This is not my beat. I kind of pop in and out when there's like a connection to the MMA, traditional combat world. Dylan Dennis, MMA fighter, etc. When Jake Paul fights an Anderson Silva or Nate Diaz, like that's my world crossing over. But I'm not going to cover Misfits 11, their next event next month, because it doesn't do it for me. And there's enough MMA and boxing and other things to cover. It doesn't bum me out, Katie, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't feel like boxing is in the gutter like people like to think it's in the gutter or say it's in the gutter. In fact, boxing has had one of its best years in recent memory with the likes of Tank Garcia and Spence Crawford and Canelo coming over and having his big fight just a couple of weeks ago. And there are big fights to come, Haney Prograis in December. Like I could go on and on about boxing. And so it's just, how do you want to deal? It's almost like talking to someone who writes for a major newspaper and say, doesn't Twitter bum you out? Doesn't it bum you out that people just want things in bite-sized form like that? This is just a sign of the times.
But this is why this specific sport, if we're calling it that with scare quotes, why it's so fascinating, it's because here you can see on some level, you can get the guilty pleasure of like, well, yeah, I'm going to click on this highlight of this guy getting his ass beat because I also know that guy to be a shitty person based on all of his documented behavior in ways that are real and legally troubling and worrisome for the future of, I don't know, the American conscience as regards like how do we treat women? And there I'm just like, on some level though, Ariel, I imagine a click is a click, right? Like this is sort of the we will take all eyeballs philosophy of how to promote something.
Yeah, and that gets the most amount of eyeballs. But I could tell you, like, there's a main event in the UFC this weekend involving a guy named Alex Volkanovski, who's like the type of person that I want my kids to be a fan of, who's a father of 3, who his biggest vice is that he likes to, cook chicken wings and put like Cheetos around it or something. Like the guy's like a salt of the earth mensch. You know what I mean? So there's enough out there that's good and wholesome in the fight game. You just have to find it. And unfortunately, those people typically don't make the big bucks, don't get the attention, and don't get people, all crazy going, oh my God, this is an indictment on the state of the fight game. It's not. There's always going to be crazy characters. There's always going to be good guys and bad guys. And it's just up to you to find the ones that you want to root for. It's sort of like, Tim Duncan was just like a soft-spoken dude, right? And there are some people who appreciated that, and then there were other people who just, like the bad boys more.
Oh,
in the NBA
Ariel,
back
Tim
in the
Duncan
day.
would be a terrible influencer.
Oh, he would be terrible. Yes.
But you know what would be better? I have solutions oriented.
Yeah.
These guys should cover themselves, both Tim Duncan and this gentleman, featherweight champion of the world. Alex Volkanovski should walk into the ring covered in Cheeto dust.
Done. Love
I mean,
He's
try
so good.
to
Solutions-based.
lay a hand on him. Try it.
Try your best.
Yeah. Then go home and touch your couch. See how that felt.
Don't touch your eye.
that's-
All right, so now that we've talked about something you know, Ariel, that I knew nothing about, I feel like I should do my story, which is something I know that you know nothing about, which is video games based.
Oh, yeah.
And now I think a lot
And I'm
of
proud of
people,
that, by the way.
I know, and we're going to get to that. But I feel like a lot of people have negative opinions of video games. They think they're frivolous, they're time wasters. But I read an article in the Paris Review. Now, that is a publication that I only remember to check when a smarty like Pablo sends me a link and says, did you see this in the Paris Review?
That's right.
And I read this really long, detailed think piece, and maybe you can put somewhere who wrote it because I do not remember.
Yep.
And I want to make sure they get credit.
Hanif Abdurraqib.
Yes, about
One of the great
his
writers.
relationship with Red Dead Redemption, which is a video game you and I actually have experience with
A
playing
lot of
together.
experience. We remember the time during the pandemic, we both played Red Dead Redemption multiplayer. Ariel, sit this one out for a second. We both got on 2 different horses
Oh my God.
going
I think we've told the
parallel.
story a million times. It's worth it every time.
And without communicating to each other verbally or otherwise, there's a move you can do in the video game where you steal someone else's horse by jumping onto it. We both tried to steal the other person's horse simultaneously and executed like a gymnastic
It looked like
routine.
synchronized swimming. It
Yes.
was like we just switched horses.
Ariel is horrified. He has no idea
don't know
why
what
we're
you-
so excited about
It was
this.
amazing. Also,
No,
Pablo's
listen.
whole thing at Red Dead was like, can I punch this horse? And you would just keep punching your horse. It
I was the
very
Logan
funny.
Paul of Red Dead Redemption.
But this
I
article,
digress.
again, in the Paris Review, basically talked about how during the pandemic and then since, because I do think in the post-pandemic world, we look at life differently. Basically how the video game taught him about life and taught him about death and about the ways that we try to control what we can control, and we try to do this complicated moral math of how we can end up redeeming ourselves in the long run. It's very good, and I recommend everybody read it, but it made me see, it kind of helps whenever you're a video games person, you get very happy when somebody legitimizes the thing you love, and then you point to it and you go, see, it's for smart people and it's helpful. And for me, I mean, video games are a big part of my life. But I think socially during the pandemic, just to speak to that aspect of it, the ability to play video games online with people anywhere. So my brother, who had moved to Chicago at the beginning of the pandemic, I now spend more time with him than I ever did, because every night we play video games together. Every night at around the same time, we get on a headset with a group of people and we play whatever we feel like playing. But it has given me like a social aspect that I think without that, I would not. I'm not going to Chicago all the time.
Wait.
Not calling him on the phone.
I want Ariel to begin to imagine what the activities, though, you're doing with your brother, and I know your fiance Dan as well, as gamers. What games are you playing?
Well, we went through a group of a stage of Call of Duty. They're still kind of on that, and there's a new one coming out that I have to decide if I'm going to get into or not. The thing with Call of Duty, and not to get into it, I think they stopped doing this now, but every couple games was from a different there were like 2 developers. I don't know if developer is the right word. I'm not smart about video games. I just play a lot
It's
of
like
them.
a boxing commission, but for
So like every
multiplayer
other
shooters.
one was made with a different engine. It was like whatever, programmed differently. It
Yeah,
moved differently.
sure.
It felt different. And so there were like a couple that I would just skipped because they weren't for me. But
What a
now I have to
nerdy
check out
objection.
this new. Well, because it just if you get I got really good at one of them. I think it was Modern Warfare, and I got really good at it. And then the next one came out, and I was garbage at it because it was just different. You moved differently. It didn't. It was too smooth. Cold War was too smooth for me.
That's
But
what they say
anyway,
about the Cold War.
That's right. There wasn't enough.
Way
it wasn't
too
gritty
smooth.
enough. But anyway, so we did a lot of Call of Duty. Then there's, but the main one we go to is we do the Rocket League tournament every.
Do you know what
every night at
Rocket League
midnight.
is, Ariel?
Yes, I know about this. Isn't this like the robots
Isn't
that play
this,
soccer?
It's cars. It's cars that play soccer.
Oh,
so,
no.
you know, the emissions
Listen,
irresponsible.
I think it's
but
a total
great
waste
sport.
of time, but far be it for me, a guy who likes pro wrestling, to knock someone's
Hugest waste
thing.
of time.
Well,
right.
this Ariel, this is where I am curious. I'm also a guy who owns an Xbox Model S and a PlayStation 5 because I'm about to play the Spider-Man game,
Which comes out this
today,
week. Yeah.
as this
Oh, it's
episode comes
today.
out. Yep.
Oh, I got to go down there.
Yeah. Spider-Man 2. Ariel, I feel like you not liking video games, but liking all of this other stuff that is allegedly frivolous, allegedly unserious, allegedly beneath smart people.
Allegedly.
How did you avoid ever contracting this particular interest?
I mean, I liked, I was a big fan back in the day. I played Madden, I played Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Nintendo, all that stuff. But to spend 3-4 hours in front of a screen shooting people. I mean, I think what it comes down to is I'm not a violent guy.
You do fight sports.
By the way,
What are we
I was
doing?
waiting. I just served
What
that one
are
up for
we
you. I thought,
doing?
okay, I was hoping you would not
I
miss
don't like
that.
violence, but this
I'm
guy
not
threw
violent.
an energy drink at this guy's crotch, and I was
Yes.
there, front row seat.
I don't condone that behavior, by the way.
Right.
But in any event, I think ultimately what it comes down to is I'm just such a busy guy, and I don't have time to play Call of Duty with my friends in California or Canada or anywhere around the world. And on top of that, in all seriousness, it is a constant battle as anyone out there who has young kids who have been exposed to iPads and video games and Nintendo Switches and things like that. It is a daily battle, a true battle, a battle that I don't think I ever presented to my parents when I had an Atari or N64 or anything like that, to try to get them to not do that, to do something else, to play outside, to play in the basement with their siblings or whatever. So if I'm sitting there for 3-4 hours playing these silly games, what kind of an example am I?
Silly games.
I have to
Ariel-
fill in, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's,
Ariel-
that's what you need, though. You just don't have kids. That's the problem. Where you guys screwed up is you procreated.
But I, as a procreator, as the father of a daughter,
Oh, here we go.
who
Yes.
also
How old is she?
who also owns a Nintendo Switch, 3.5. Violet's 3.5.
Crazy. She
Um,
was born
Your daughter
yesterday.
has a Nintendo Switch at 3.5?
I have a Nintendo Switch that she
Ah, okay.
is always asking to play because I played it in
the
front
way
of
they
her.
pick it up is scary.
It is. So truly, like the intuitive aspect of just how to manipulate any sort of tablet and or video game system is unnerving.
Crazy.
But
Crazy.
I do want to point out that Ariel is talking about Nintendo Switches the way like Bob Ryan talks about 3-pointers.
That's
Like
right.
you
No.
old ass man. You
I
old.
know.
It's not
I'm
for
getting
you.
old.
But this is-
to quote you, it's not for you.
But this is where
It's
this is
fine.
where I think Ariel. I'm so glad we're talking about this with someone who is not, again, immersed in open world video games.
Nice.
Because a part of what this article in the Paris Review,
Le Revue Paris.
Croissant, what that article was pointing out was like, this is a game that, of course, has like these existential themes, like the main character who you become. He has like a morality meter where like the more good works you do, Ariel, you're an aspirational good guy, a baby face. The more good stuff you do, the more points you get. And the worst stuff you do, of course, like the different sort of consequences you encounter. But the other part about this game, which I find so interesting, is that it's open world insofar as you can just, as the author points out, go and watch sunsets. You can go to the western side of the map.
It's a beautiful game.
It's beautiful.
not as beautiful as Ghost of Tsushima, but also a beautiful.
Where you can be a
just beautiful
samurai
game. Yeah.
in samurai times, which is
Gorgeous.
fucking great. But you can watch sunsets, Ariel, in an open world video game, and it's amazing.
You can punch horses.
Listen,
And punch
I don't want to be
horses.
one of those guys who's like, you're wasting your time. I just can't. It's not for me. I kind of feel like it's a waste of time, and I feel like you're sitting there for. If you told me you were someone who played it for 30 minutes a night,
Well,
and it's all about
let's do the accounting
Impossible.
here,
It's just
Katie.
waiting to get into a lobby itself.
I know
They do these
That's
things
the
on Call of
thing.
Duty where it's like, a 30-minute double XP pass. But once you activate it, it goes in real time. Then you have to join a lobby. Then you have to wait for the 100 other people to join the lobby. By the time you're in, you got 15 minutes left on your pass. It is time consuming. Here's the thing, Ariel. I got a lot of time. Here I am at not my job work. Like I've got time. So I do spend a bunch of it playing video games. But I find them entertaining and also like mentally stimulating and rewarding.
And Ariel Helwani is doing what to de-stress?
Great. Honestly, it's actually a bit of a sad question to ponder because I'm starting to realize that I have no hobbies
There you go.
whatsoever. But my wife likes to watch these shows. I watch none of them with her. She likes to stay up at night and watch, she just finished watching Game of Thrones. I'm proud to say I didn't watch a second of it.
And don't.
I want nothing to do with any of this stuff. Honestly, I just want to go to bed. If I could go to bed, I'm very happy. If it's 9:30, I'm thrilled. Yeah, I'm a bit of a loser. I guess
9:30
You're
is
a nine.
bedtime.
You're a 9:30 guy.
if I could go. Can I tell you what's my? You know what? Can I tell you what's my
Books.
new favorite thing right now?
You are,
books.
is it your
Favorite-
sleeping cap? Is it the candle you carry
No.
with you on the way
Imagine
to bed
with
at
my
9:30?
warm cup of milk. My new favorite thing right now, and this isn't like a crazy answer or anything, but I've really fallen in love with soccer. I adore soccer.
Huh.
That's become like my escape.
I mean, you love soccer so much. What if Katie Nolan and I told you that you could play soccer, but as a car?
That's
Choo,
true.
choo, choo. You could fly through the air. I'm learning how to fly. I'm not very good at it. but-
Rocket League has flying
Yeah, so there's you
capability.
get to a certain level where I always say I'm a flightless bird. I do a lot of ground work, which you're familiar with. My ground game is strong.
Yeah.
And so, like, there'll be guys that are trying to fly, and the ball will be up here, and they'll try to fly it, and they'll miss. And then who's waiting there for it? Me.
the
Put it in the
catfish,
net.
like
That's
a
right.
catfish.
But now I'm trying to learn how to fly, and it's very hard because you have to feather your boost button, which gets your car to fly. It's a whole thing. I can show you, Ariel. I can show you later.
No, I have no. My kids played it. Like, actually, my kids who are 11 and 9, they've outgrown that game.
Okay.
They don't even play
this
that game
feels
anymore.
mean. This feels just
No, I'm
the
just saying. Like,
Paris
I was like, oh, this
Review.
is cool. You like the robots hitting the ball? Great.
I don't know what feathering your boost button means. I just
Yeah.
know that someone out there heard Katie Nolan say that
And liked it.
And liked it way too much.
A little too much.
Yeah.
And shout out to that lady.
oh.
Progressive.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
I think too much screen time is ultimately bad for your brain, but the other
That says a
stuff,
guy
the
who's
camaraderie.
never on his phone? You want me to think you're never on your
Says
phone?
a guy who's sitting in front of a giant screen with fake
with a
books
screen
on
behind
it.
him. Yeah, you are on a screen with a screen. You are in a screen sandwich, my friend.
All right, we have.
Well, guess what?
What?
That's a great transition right
Oh,
there.
there it
Look
Can I
at
take
that.
that
Look
transition?
at that
Ariel.
production.
Come on.
Yep.
Says a guy who's
Professional.
always on his screen. Yes. That brings me to the article that I wanted to present to you guys. A fascinating profile on a young man named Shams Charania. Of course, every sports fan out there knows who Shams is. He is one of the foremost scoopers, newsbreakers in the world of the NBA. There's only really two, right? There's him and Woj. It's a story in New York Magazine, and it's entitled Scoop Dreams, written by Reeves Weidman. And it's a fascinating look at a young man who isn't even 30 years old and who has carved out quite the niche for himself. And the thing about this, I mean, there's a lot to unpack regarding this
Yes.
story. There's a part, look, I very much relate and sympathize to the story, if only because for a very long time people used to refer to me as the Woj of MMA, meaning I would break a lot of stories, and some of those stories got me in trouble, and
Right.
people didn't want them out, blah blah blah. I have really removed myself from that world because it is intoxicating, and it is like this never-ending hamster wheel. And ultimately, I felt like I was too obsessed with the phone, too connected to the phone, too obsessed with checking the phone in the middle of the night. Did I miss a scoop? Did I not miss a scoop? And life is too short for that nonsense.
Wait. When
Yes.
did this realization hit? Because Shams Charania, for the context of the story, which is really good in New York Magazine, he's talking about how his FaceTime average screen time a day is 18 hours.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that he sends more than 500 texts, calls, and emails a day.
I want to die.
A day.
That's
You know.
suffocating.
To compete, Ariel, to compete in the never-ending rat race of scoops and newsbreaking.
Yeah. I don't think that's healthy, but he's a young guy. He doesn't have a family. And so I understand why he's doing it. I don't begrudge him. I was trying to do the same thing in the world of mixed martial arts for a very long time. But ultimately, to answer your question, like a couple of years ago, I just felt like it was unhealthy. And I felt like it was just a never ending cycle of, okay, you break this story, no one cares, 10 minutes later, and then it's on to the next one. And it wasn't fun anymore. It was making me hate my job. And you know, it made the UFC not like me. It made other people not. And it's just like, this is not the way to be. And I would say to Shams, like he has obviously created a great lane for himself. His whole relationship with Woj, I find to be very bizarre. I
Star
don't know
Wars-y.
what's going on there.
Yeah, like mentor, pupil, betrayal, allegedly, don't talk anymore, all that.
Don't credit each other, never reference each other, don't acknowledge each other's existence. Like there's nothing that seems healthy about that.
No.
But you know, they're the only two, and I can't imagine 18 hours in front of the phone. Speaking from a guy who, by the way, averages like 10 or 11, so I can't be too, you know.
We're all up there.
Yeah,
holier
we're
than thou.
all
Okay.
ashamed of our
Yeah.
screen
I
time.
would never say mine
Okay,
out
fair
loud.
enough. I didn't know if that was bad.
No, it is.
It is
but we're
bad.
all there together, so
Yeah.
we're not here to judge.
Yep.
He's on a different. I've stood in front of these. I won't name names, but I've stood in front of these quote unquote newsbreakers, and they can't not look at their phone for more than a minute.
I mean, you see them on TV, like in the NFL. Like, we were never, from just being on TV as little as I have, you never have your phone out. But when you see Schefter, he has to have his phone out. And sometimes he would get up and walk away to take, like, they are constant.
Crazy,
they're
right?
like, they're just not addicted, but like they are tethered to be tethered to their phone.
I think it's addicted, but also incentivized. Because
Right.
the other context for the story is that these are enormously profitable jobs. Like, Shams doing this is not, he's not stupid. He's doing it because this is a niche that is increasingly valuable. He gets paid a lot of money, as does Woj even more so, as does Schefter even more so. So the idea, Ariel, of like, this is a way to do sports media. I read this story and I think to myself, I don't want any part of this job. It seems, and again, maybe that's a place of privilege because I have this weird studio that I sit in where I talk to Katie Nolan and pay her $0. But it's amazing. It's amazing how little I envy the success story that objectively this is.
Yes, you can make a lot of money, but let me tell you from experience, and it was never at the level of Shams or Woj. It's a personal jail that you're living in because it's not just about breaking news, this and that. It's the relationships and it's trying to beat this guy, and then the fear. Sometimes I would break a story and my heart would be pounding so much. The fear of potentially getting something wrong is so it is truly terrifying. Now, proud to say, still batting 1,000, baby.
Nice.
Yeah,
All
buddy.
these years
Nice.
later,
No
never
turnover.
got anything wrong. But I mean, I did see. I think one of the dudes that we're talking about did tweet that Dame was going to Toronto and then deleted the tweet. And you can't delete anything on the internet.
Shams did
And
that
look,
explicitly.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. That is not a good feeling. He must have wanted to crawl into a hole and never come out. It's unsustainable. And so for someone who is as young as him, it's great. I don't know how Woj does it, and there's a reason why more people don't do it. It is truly an unsustainable and I think an unhealthy and unhappy way to live your life.
I feel like we're all, my favorite meme on the internet is, and it's my favorite because I relate to it, is the animated GIF of that raccoon who's holding cotton candy, who then dips it into water, because that's what raccoons do with their food, and then looks away for a second and looks back and it's completely dissolved. And it's just like, oh, this is what making content is. But the Newsbreaker guys are that to the even more extreme extent.
I think I would constantly be anxious that I'm being fed bad information in an attempt to change a narrative on something to help somebody save money on a trade, or I would always be worried that somebody was giving me bad information. I don't trust enough.
You obviously have to double or triple check. So that was a big thing because people have their own agendas. But the thing that I don't get is like, okay, obviously, look, as you said, Pablo, they make money off of it. But there are times where they're literally 30 seconds apart with almost the same wording. It's almost like they're copy and pasting the same. So where's the joy in that?
Well, also,
you know what
like,
I mean?
you put Newsbreaker in scare quotes. I co-sign your scare quotes. It's absolutely an occupation that should exist. I'm not trying to get on a journalistic high horse here, but just the comedy of everybody's trying to get ahead of a press release by 5 seconds. That's the win. All you got to do is be the nanosecond guy. Literally, the person in the comment section saying first, that is the win. It's going to come out. 99% of the time, it's going to get released. You just got to be the first guy with the tweet.
And obviously there's a demand for it, like that we live in a world where it's okay to be on television, being paid by your employer, and it's more important to send something out on Twitter as opposed to delivering that information. Imagine Walter Cronkite back in the day tweeting that JFK is dead as opposed to delivering it to the world. Obviously, it's not as important, but it's just it's absurd to me that we've reached that point. Now, I'm not trying to be, sanctimonious here because I used to kind of reside more in this world, but ultimately, from a personal fulfillment standpoint,
A cardiac standpoint.
that too, I derive a lot more joy from getting big interviews, doing great shows, having a personality, things of that nature. And I would worry for Shams because if he continues to do this, like it's just unsustainable. It truly is. And I don't think it's very healthy.
Can we do the thing where we get real uncomfortably invasive?
Sure.
And so he has 72,443 unread emails.
Yuck.
So what
That
do we
would drive
got?
me
What
insane.
you got, Ariel? What you got?
Right now?
Yeah, right now.
Okay.
Right now. Let's go.
Right this second?
Let's reveal. We're all going to go
it's
around the
amazing
table.
that you're asking me this question. Right now, I have 57, and it drives me insane.
57.
I have insane OCD. My goal at the end of the night is to get to 0.
Oh, boy.
The people who have
your
emails like
inbox.
My
that,
screen would drive you crazy.
I mean, I'm currently
psychos.
Gmail. I've managed this better. I'm currently at unread 3,282.
Wow, I couldn't live. What about you, Katie?
Who, me? Oh, just at a cool 22,922.
Wow.
A lot
That's
of that is stuff
absurd.
like Grubhub being like, we've got your order, and I just never open it or delete it. I try to every day now. I try to go through and I delete all the ones I don't need. But there's like years of me not doing that.
But the idea
I hate
of
emails.
the idea of keep your phone out. The idea
Okay.
of your phone as a prison.
Mm-hmm.
What are you imprisoned by these days?
Group chats.
Really?
I am. Actually, if you want to get specific, right now I'm in a group chat that involves people that are not on an iPhone, which means that you do not
Terrible.
have the ability.
You should be in jail.
You do not have the ability to click on the group and go leave this group chat. It's a prison. I am stuck in the group chat. The only way out is if I message the person who put me in it and specifically ask to
You
be
can't.
removed.
You can't pull a parachute cord.
No, because it's not just an iMessage group chat. So I'm stuck, and the person who put me in it is like a person I don't want to make mad, and so I just mute it, and then I have these constant messages, and they're just hard to keep up with. And then if you mute them and they're people you do want to talk to, like I read an article in something, Wall Street Journal. I don't know. I read a lot.
Oh yeah.
About
The
parents.
Journal had an article about group
and
chats.
this may be relevant to you. I know you have children, of parents in group chats, and they're finding them suffocating, of like other parents or of like the PTA or the.
Right.
Does anybody know if we're allowed to bring peanut products to school? They're just constantly texting with these tiny questions, and they said they feel this need to scroll through them just to make sure nobody texted about an emergency or nobody texted something specifically related to their child. And it's just I just think group chats are like they're bordering on like taking over our lives.
It's anxiety inducing, and I'm
Yes.
not good at them. I'm not
Yes.
good at them.
I don't need to. You don't need to talk to me every day. I don't have anything to update you on. I promise. I'll let you know when I do, or maybe I won't.
I feel like Ariel is also Canadian, and I feel like
Yes.
your politeness, Ariel. This is your inbox zero guy. I have a feeling that the way that you hold yourself to account is probably different than me and Katie.
Oh, I have to reply to everyone. Actually, what annoys me more about the story that you just told me was the fact that some people or one person isn't on an iPhone. I hate the green texters.
Yeah.
The moment I see that someone is a green texter, I feel like there's like a block between us. Like I can't fully embrace you. Like I feel like the waves of communication just aren't going to be as
It's
great
bad.
as if I could see the
But
dots.
then don't you feel icky because then you're basically saying that everybody has to be an Apple product user, and then you just
I
kind of
hate the
feel
green
like you're.
texters.
But it just feels like shouldn't people be allowed to use shouldn't these tech companies get together and make it so everybody's blue? Can't they
Sure.
figure it out?
But that's like some sort of utopia.
Yeah,
I hate
yeah,
green
yeah.
texters.
I
In fact,
hate them
if
more
you're a
than
green
I hate
texter, I prefer to go to
capitalism.
WhatsApp. Do you know WhatsApp?
Yeah,
You guys use
Oh,
WhatsApp?
yeah.
I don't
I
use it,
prefer
but
WhatsApp.
I know of it.
Oh, you don't use it?
It's
So
just
most of my
another
group
text message app. I don't need another text. I don't have that much to say, and if I do, I'll put it on a podcast.
So you know what's interesting? Most of my group texts are on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And in Europe, because I cover a sport that is very European, no one uses iMessage.
Yeah.
There are some people who don't know, they only use WhatsApp. So it's a whole different thing. But at least in WhatsApp, you can't tell if someone is iPhone or Android or whatever. So everyone looks the same on WhatsApp. I like that. So that's to your point. Shouldn't everyone look the same?
Owned by
But if I get
Facebook.
a new number, I don't do Facebook.
It's owned by Facebook.
is-
WhatsApp is owned
Yep.
by Facebook.
Oh, it's owned
Meta.
by Facebook, right? Yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
yep.
Yes. Shout out to my boy Mark Zuckerberg. We're close now. I don't know if you guys know
I
this.
bet.
Big MMA guy.
Oh yeah.
Wait,
Both-
you really are close now?
Well, close as maybe.
Wait,
a
so
bit.
Do you have
hold
his
on.
number?
We have.
You
Wait,
rather
wait.
not
Wait. We have on this show, Papa Tori Finds Out, covered
Yes.
Mark Zuckerberg
Yes.
and his MMA, BJJ specifically, like Dylan
Great job.
Dennis. Thank you. He's definitely an Ariel Helwani. He's a Helwani guy, no doubt. If Zuck is into this sport, that is the face, the Canadian inbox zero aspirational face of his favorite media member. I'm
Yes, I'm wearing
confident
my
in
own
that.
merch.
You are.
Just in case you
That's
were
fine.
wondering, Katie.
That's okay.
I know you were judging.
I wasn't. You don't know anything about me.
No, okay, wow, sorry. I don't want that smoke. I'm sorry.
Has
no,
Mark
it's
Zuckerberg texted Ariel Helwani? Yes or no?
Absolutely yes.
Yes or no?
He WhatsApped him.
text? No. Do we DM?
Oh.
And is he an incredibly fast DMer?
I bet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
Have I asked him to come on my show to talk about his love of mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu?
Of course.
Yes. Has he said that he would like to come on?
Yes.
Yes. Actually,
That's a lot of
the way
yeses.
I found out that he followed me was he commented on one of my posts, but I, at the time, wasn't following him. My friend was like, do you realize that Mark Zuckerberg is in your comments? I was like, wow. Then I went to the profile. I was like, follow back. I saw the follow back. I was
Damn.
like, wow. That felt cool.
And
I
that
felt good in that moment.
Damn.
and Ariel Helwani's beleaguered heart was a flutter.
Listen, I'm not a name dropper. These things don't impress me. Sure, The Rock and I text from time to time, but it's
Oh,
just
of
because
course.
it's just
What's
because
it
we
like
have
texting The Rock?
Wait.
It's got to be
No,
the
it's
most
just 'cause
boring
Dwayne and I are cool like
experience.
that.
There
It
it
has
is.
to be the
No,
most
it's
boring
just
experience.
Dwayne.
There's no chance Dwayne is putting on paper anything interesting.
Dwayne is the man. Are you talking what? Salt of the earth.
Yeah, but there's
This
no.
guy's
Can
a
you
man.
wait? Can you go into your phone right now, Ariel, and just give us 3 words from any text exchange you've had with Dwayne?
This one popped up. You're a class act and chat soon. I'll just leave it at that.
Jesus.
I'll just leave it at that. I mean, he said it right there. I
Yeah.
have it.
Wow.
I mean, who am I to disagree?
A class act.
right.
A class f***ing act.
Yeah, I agree.
Soon.
Soon. Let's chat
We'll
soon.
do it again soon.
So at the end here, Ariel, what we do at the end of Pablo Torre Finds Out is we go around the table. Katie hates this part because it always catches her
I'm
by
ready this
surprise.
time.
Oh, you are? Okay.
I'm ready. I'm
we go
prepared.
around the table and we say what we found out today. We've shared a lot of things about ourselves and each other, invasively, publicly. And Katie Nolan, what did you find out today?
I found out today for the 5th time, but hopefully this time I will retain it, that Jake is the younger one. Logan is the older one.
Oh,
Jake was on Nickelodeon. Logan filmed something he shouldn't have filmed and put it on YouTube. Ask me that next week, and I hopefully will still have it, but I don't think so.
that is
That's what I
you
found
nailed
out.
that.
That-
Yeah,
that's
That's
thank
a lot
you.
to retain,
And that's all
nailed
you.
it.
That's 100% coming from you. So thank you very much for giving me that information.
Ariel, what did you learn?
I guess I learned that I shouldn't be so negative towards video games, that for hermits, it could be a great thing.
He had me, and then he lost me. I was feeling, my heart was warmed, and then it went cold.
For the
Hermits are cool.
antisocial.
I don't
it
leave
could
my
be,
house. Leaving your house is stupid and overrated. Come at me.
For the antisocial, it could be a nice way to interact with others. And I shouldn't be so negative towards people who spend 4 to 5 hours or so
3
a
or 4.
night.
3 or 4.
3 to 4.
Depends.
Playing some fictitious video game, as opposed to, as the kids like to say online, touch grass.
Wow.
There's no grass. I live in New York City, so my options are scarce, and therefore I played Zelda to 100% completion.
Wow.
Oh, you did? Oh,
Zelda.
yeah, the new Zelda.
Yeah, I got all those Korok
Wow,
seeds.
there's a new
Every
Zelda?
single one of them. There's
All of the
1,000,
Korok
I believe.
seeds?
Yeah, I had a lot of time.
Last question. Has The Rock ever texted you about how he knew that Osama bin Laden had been assassinated before anybody else?
Really? Is that a thing?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Katie, you know
Wow.
the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know
The
that.
Rock tweeted out like a mysterious, very coy message about like, can't say what it is, but great
Really?
news for our country. God bless America.
Yeah, like
and
proud
then,
to be an American or something
yeah,
like
proud
that.
to be an American.
And it was,
In April
and then
of
like
2011?
minutes after we found out that Osama bin Laden was dead.
That's right.
Wow.
He had the scoop.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah, he
See,
scooped.
You kids stay on the internet too long. You're into
This
these group
guy.
chats.
This guy.
and
I thought I was looking
Reddit
forward to
pages.
hanging out with him.
Just got word that will shock the world. Dash.
Wow.
Land of the free. ... Home of the brave. Damn proud to be an American! Exclamation point. You know who wasn't a class act? To
Osama bin
Dwayne.
Laden?
Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
They
a
would,
class
they,
act.
they would not
They
chat
will not
soon.
chat soon. Absolutely not.
And so we reach the end of yet another week at Pablo Torre Finds Out, and I want to point something out. David Sampson, our arch nemesis, says something very nice about us on whatever the we call Twitter now. And so I just want to point out that David We appreciate you, and we will never stop rubbing it in your goddamn face how much we're finding out all of the time. Because of Michael Antonucci, Ryan Cortez, Sam Daywig, Juan Galindo, Patrick Kim, Neely Lohman, Rachel Miller-Howard, Ethan Schreier, Carl Scott, Matt Sullivan, Chris Tuminello, studio engineering by RG Systems, post-production by NGW Post, and our theme song, of course, by John Bravo. We will talk to all of you next week.